Thank all of you for coming here today evening. And as is mentioned, I'll speak today on the topic of be open-minded, not empty-minded. Will you be operating that? Okay, so the basic theme of this talk will be this. It's encapsulated in the first slide, and I'll elaborate it and come back to it towards the end. So our minds are like mouths. If we are to eat food, if the mouth is closed, no food will go in. But if the mouth is opened, food goes in. But if the mouth is not closed, then we can't chew what we have eaten. We won't benefit from what we have eaten. So, the word close-minded has a strongly negative connotation with it, which we certainly shouldn't be. We should be close-minded. At the same time, open-minded simply means that we need to be open to take in information from the outer world. We all have certain conceptions in our life which often need revision because we are finite and fallible beings. At the same time, if we become so open-minded that our brains fall out, then that is counterproductive. Next, please. So, now what is close-mindedness? And I'll clarify the terms initially, several of them. Close-minded basically means that I have my opinion and I stick to that opinion no matter what the reality is. There's an American comedian who said that, I have already made up my mind, now don't confuse me with the facts. So, if you don't want to hear the facts, then how have you made up your mind? So, when we are close-minded, we stick to our opinions and we refuse to take in any information that will challenge our opinions. And people who are close-minded, they live in what can be called as echo chambers, where they hear only those voices which echo their opinions. And that way, they consider that, yeah, what I'm thinking is right. And if anybody is speaking anything different, just filter it out. And in that way, they end up not having any scope to learn anything more. And quite often, religion is accused of being close-minded. And unfortunately, it does happen that if one's religious beliefs are taken up as a matter, not so much of intellectual deliberation, but as an intellectual shortcut. Reality is very complicated, and I don't want to spend my time and energy and intellectual effort to analyze this complex reality. And I just take some opinion and accept that and refuse to consider anything that disagrees with that opinion. So often in religions there are groups and there are people who fight against each other. So once there was a Christian who was walking along a bridge and he saw another man. He was about to jump off the bridge. Hey, what are you doing? He said, no one loves me, that's why I'm jumping off the bridge. He says, no, God loves you. Oh, really? How do you know that? He says, because I'm a Christian. I know that God loves me. He says, I'm also a Christian. Oh, very good. Then we can be friends. He says, okay. What branch of Christianity? He says, I'm a Protestant. Oh, I'm also a Protestant. Oh, very good. He says, which branch of Protestant? He says, I'm a Baptist. Oh, really? I'm also Baptist. Very good. Oh, okay. Which branch of Baptism? He says, I'm a Southern Baptist. Oh, I'm also Southern Baptist. Okay. Which branch of Southern Baptism? He says, I'm a Reformed Southern Baptist. You infidel, jump off the bridge. So, we may have 100 things to agree with, but if there's one thing which we disagree with, when we are narrow-minded, when we are close-minded, that one thing is what we identify with. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient book of yoga, it is said that knowledge itself can be in different forms. There is something which is called knowledge in ignorance. Now, normally we consider knowledge and ignorance as two opposite things. But knowledge in ignorance means the knowledge that reinforces our ignorance. I stay ignorant to the complete reality, but knowledge I acquire more and more so that I perpetuate my ignorance of the complete reality. I have a small fragment of knowledge. Say for example, narrow-mindedness or close-mindedness could come, I come from India. India, there is casteism, where people are labeled by their births. In the West, in America and other places, there might be racism, where people are labeled by the color of their skin. And people develop opinions, people of this caste or people of this race are like this. And no matter how much reality may differ from their opinion, their prejudice stays as it is. They're close-minded to reality. They reduce people down to one particular feature, their race, their caste, or in this case, their particular religious sub-designation. And this kind of close-mindedness prevents communication, prevents relationships, and it aggravates conflicts. But let's go forward. What is empty-mindedness? Empty-mindedness means that whatever is the current opinion, current flow of opinion, we just take it in. So basically our minds become like a pipe. Anything that is flowing comes in and goes out. There's nothing that stays forever. So once there was a pastor and his congregation got split into two. During the Mass, in a particular part of the liturgy, some people in the congregation said that during this part of the liturgy, we should all stand up. So they came to the pastor and they said this, we should all stand up. He said, yes, that's our tradition. Then the other group came and he said, no, during this part of the tradition, we should sit down. He said, yes, that's our tradition. And both of them met each other. And they said, the pastor said this, that's our tradition. And the pastor told us, that's our tradition. They both came back and they said that you said that's our tradition, sitting down is our tradition. And you told them that standing up is our tradition. Now we are going to fight. And the pastor said, yes, that's our tradition. So, now my point here is not to criticize any particular religion. My point is that these kind of divisions happen in any belief system. It can be in Christianity, in Islam, in Hinduism, even in atheism. There are atheists also who often have severe conflicts among themselves. There are moderate atheists and there are extremist atheists. And they have fights among themselves. One of my closest friends is a Muslim. And he told me that it is easier for me to communicate with moderates of other traditions than extremists of my own tradition. So basically, open-mindedness and close-mindedness is not a characteristic of any belief system. It is a characteristic of the believers. And that's why even atheists can be close-minded and theists can be open-minded, or theists can be close-minded and atheists can be open-minded. So there is, whatever belief we may have beyond that is the particular mindset of the believer. Can you go ahead? So again, clarifying terms over here. So, is there an ultimate reality? So the idea that there is some ultimate reality, we can call it as ultimatism. Now, ultimatism means that, okay, there is so much relative reality around us, but beyond that, there is some reality. So those who accept this are called as ultimatists or ultimatism. It's a neologism, not a very common word, but sometimes it is conflated or equated to dogmatism. Dogmatism means, what is my opinion, what is my dogma, I stick to it no matter what the facts. That is different from ultimatism, which says that there is some ultimate reality. Whether we know it or not, whether our current knowledge coincides with the ultimate reality or not, these are different issues. But that there is some ultimate reality. And the opposite of ultimatism is relativism. Relativism means everything is relative. There is no ultimate reality at all. So ultimatism and relativism are opposite. And dogmatism and open-mindedness are opposite. Dogmatic means I just stick to this opinion no matter what the facts. But open-minded means, okay, I have this opinion based on my present understanding. But if I get some other facts, get some other reasoning, I'm open to revise my opinion. So what most of us want is open-mindedness. But often we consider open-mindedness and ultimatism to be opposites. But the opposite of ultimatism is relativism. And what happens with relativism? Can you go ahead? So relativism relativizes everything, including relativism itself. Now if somebody says there is no absolute truth, well, is that statement an absolute truth? If you say yes, then there is an absolute truth, isn't it? The statement that there is no absolute truth. So the statement that there is no absolute truth is an absolute truth. That means if the statement is true, it is false. There is no absolute truth. If this statement is true, that means this statement is an absolute truth, and therefore the statement that there is no absolute truth is false. So if it is true, it is false. And if I say there is no absolute truth, is this statement an absolute truth? No, it is not an absolute truth. Then that means actually no statement is an absolute truth, and therefore there is no absolute truth. What it means is if the statement is false, it is true. And if it is true, it is false. If you don't understand it, don't worry. So, in logic, these are called as self-contradictory statements. A simple self-contradictory statement could be, if I say, I don't know a single word of English. Well, I already spoke 8 words. So saying I don't know a single word of English is a self-contradictory statement. Or if I say, I don't exist. Well, you have to exist to say you don't exist. So these are self-contradictory statements. So relativism, if we make relativism the ultimate reality, then relativism relativizes everything, including relativism itself. You go ahead. This American comedian Woody Allen, he said, don't be strongly attached to any opinion. To this opinion, I am strongly attached. So, even to say don't have any opinions is an opinion, isn't it? So we can't be opinionless. We can't be standless. We have to have some stand, some foundation. Now it's a question whether our opinion is right or wrong. So I was just a few months ago, I was giving a talk in Amazon in Seattle. So at that time, I was talking this idea of moral relativism. People believe that morality is completely relative. If you think it is right for you, it is right for you. If you think it is wrong for you, it is wrong for you. There is no such thing as absolute right or universally right or universally wrong. So then I asked the audience, do you think at this moment there is someone who is doing something wrong? What do all of you think? Do you think there are some people somewhere in the world who are doing something wrong? Obviously, isn't it? There are child abusers, there are sexual molesters, there are religious fanatics, there are doing terrible things. Now, if you ask a religious fanatic, say if you ask a jihadi who is killing innocent people, blowing themselves up, blowing others up, do they think that they are doing anything wrong? They think they are doing it right. So, and how can we say that what they are doing is wrong? If morality is relative, if what we believe is what makes something right and something wrong, then on what basis can we say that what they are doing is wrong? Now we intuitively know that, say, blowing up innocent people is wrong. But if morality is relative, on what basis are we saying it is wrong? So therefore, we can't say, yes, specifically what is right and what is wrong, that about that there will be different opinions. But that there are some things which are right and some things which are wrong. This is a universal human intuition. There's a difference between the specifics and the specific specific issues and the universal principle. The universal principle we all accept, that there are some things which are right and which are wrong. Which are right, which are wrong, that may vary. So again, this is what I talk about ultimatism. There is some ultimate standard of right and wrong. If, say, somebody shouts at, a person shouts at person B, and then another person C, a friend says to A, hey, you should not have spoken like that. Oh, I was too angry at that time. I was too disturbed by this, that. Now, when you say you should not have spoken like that, what does it mean? I think that there is some way to speak, some way not to speak. There's an assumption that there is a right way and a wrong way. And this person is saying, oh yeah, no, I know what I spoke, the way I spoke was wrong, but because of this I spoke like that. So that means, if we consider our normal conversation also, we accept this point that there is a right and wrong way of acting. So, Albert Einstein was arguably the greatest mind of the previous century. And he himself was profoundly troubled by the implications of relativism. He said he was persecuted by the Nazis and he had to flee Germany and he found asylum in America. So he said that if we accept relativism, then the result would be that the Nazi is killing millions of people. He said, I would have to accept that there's nothing wrong with them. It was just their opinion that Jews are bad and Jews should be killed. And they believed that they were doing the right thing by that. So if our own belief alone determines what is right and what is wrong, then people can be mass killers, people can commit genocide, and if they believe they are right, does it make them right? No, it doesn't. So yes, we don't want moral dogmas to be imposed by one group on another. But that doesn't mean we have to reject morality itself. We don't want dogmatism, but that doesn't mean we have to accept relativism in an absolute way. So when I was speaking this in Amazon, so after that, one of the executives of Amazon was there in the audience. He came and told me that although obviously it's a company meant for commercial purposes, but they said that even we accept that certain things are wrong. And that's why on their website, when they have apparel, dresses, costumes being advertised, they say, when as far as they have apparel for women, but if they're apparel for children, means girls, minor girls, they may show women wearing the apparel, but they don't show girls wearing that apparel. Because they say we don't want to encourage child abuse. We don't want to encourage pedophilia. So for children, when they show the apparel, they simply show the dress without people wearing that dress. For women, they show it wearing the dress. So here, even a company which is progressive, you could say, but it also recognizes that there are some things are right and some things are wrong. So we, as I said, we cannot have no opinion. Relativism in an absolute sense is not logically or practically an option. We all make some decisions about what is right and what is wrong. And based on that, we act. Now, whenever there is some relative difference, whenever I come from India to America, usually somebody drives me from one place to another. So for a few weeks after I come from India to America, or I go from America to India, I usually go to the wrong side of the car. Because the driver sits on one side in America and the driver sits on the other side in India. So now if we consider the rules of traffic in America and India, or is Canada the same as America? Yes. Okay, so Canada and India, we would say, the rules are opposite. But still, the purpose is the same. The purpose is the regulation of traffic. So just because the rules are relative, the rules here are one thing and the rules there are another thing, that does not mean everything is relative. There is an absolute purpose, that is to smoothly and safely facilitate traffic. The specific rules can be not only different but opposite, and yet there can be a universal principle underlying those rules. So we are looking today, as when we say open-minded, don't judge. If I come from India, hey, you Canadians, you drive all wrong. Or Canadians go to India, you Indians drive all wrong. So don't judge like that. But just because we shouldn't judge, so judging like that would be close-minded. But the empty-minded means, okay, you drive like this, I drive like, you people drive like this, we people drive like this. Anybody can drive whichever way you want. Ultimately, these rules have no basis. No, the rules have a purpose. And that purpose needs to be served. So can you move on? Yeah. So we all have our filters which prevent us from perceiving things properly. Now, the idea of close-mindedness is that we just reinforce what our filters are, what our beliefs are. Being open-minded means, okay, I have a particular opinion, but this is a filter which is shaping my perception of reality. But if I can go beyond this filter, then I can expand my understanding of reality. So is it possible to go beyond our filters? Is it possible to change from close-minded to open-minded? Now we may say, we should all become open-minded, so it must be possible. But if we take relativism to the extreme, that would mean that first of all, the filters are all that exist. There's nothing beyond the filter. But the filters are there, they distort our vision. So if I am prejudiced against certain class of people, I see them negatively. But then if I think, these people are rude. But then I meet somebody from that class of people who is very kind and courteous. And then maybe I was wrong, maybe my opinion is wrong. So the filter is here, but there is somebody beyond the filter who is observing. So, is there a holder of the opinions beyond the opinions? Are we just our opinions, or are we something beyond those opinions? So to analyze this, let's do a simple thought exercise. So wherever you are seated, you can just sit comfortably, and then you can close your eyes. And with me, you can take 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. Now, with your eyes closed, try to see what appears in front of you. Because your eyes are closed, you cannot see physically what is in front of you. But still, it is as if there is a screen inside you. And on that screen, various images may come and go. You may see this room, you may see your home, you may see your car, you may see your friend, you may see your phone, you may see various images coming and going, or you may see just a dull haze of colors over there. Whatever specifically you see it on an inner screen. Now, while you are looking at that inner screen, try to take a step back and look at the seer of that inner screen. Try to take a step back and try to catch sight of who is it that is looking at the inner screen. Try once again. Take a step back and try to catch sight of the inner seer. No matter how many steps you take back, the inner seer steps back with you. What you are looking for is what you are looking with. You are that inner seer, and this inner screen is your mind. You, that inner seer, are someone beyond the mind. You are a spiritual being. You can take one deep breath and then you can open your eyes. Thank you. So, right now when you're observing, for perception to take place, Say you are looking at me, so this whole room is a part of the outer scene. There's the outer scene, there's the inner screen, and there's the inner seer. When the three are aligned, then perception takes place. When the inner screen starts showing us something else. So right now, we were talking to each other. I mean, we made this talk. You are hearing, I am speaking. But suddenly, if you remember, hey, did I lock my house or not? And immediately thoughts go over there. What if I not lock the house? What if something is breaking? Oh. Immediately, on that inner screen, a movie starts off. And then, while that movie starts off, we get lost. And then, suddenly, say in the class, some joke happens. Many times when you joke in a class, then people suddenly, hey, what happened? What happened? So what happened was, their mind had gone off somewhere else. And when suddenly there's a joke, I also want to enjoy the joke. What is the joke? So basically, this inner screen is the mind. And that inner screen shapes what we perceive. So we practically never respond to the outer reality. We respond to our perception of that outer reality. If we are in a desert, desperately craving for water, and at that time we see a mirage. Now there is no water out there, it's just sand. But in our mind, it appears as if the water is there. And then we race towards it, hoping to get some water to quench our thirst. So we respond not to the physical reality, but to the mental representation of the physical reality. So this mind is the inner screen on which inputs from outside come in. So this inner screen is where our biases, our prejudices, our attachments are stored. And that is how our opinions get distorted. So say, if somebody is very attached to food, it's always want to keep eating. So they come into a room, the first thing they look around, is there any food anywhere? That's the first thing they see. Because the inner screen is filled with that impression, food. So as soon as they come in, they will look for food. Maybe some people, cleanliness is good, but some people are cleanliness fanatics. So as soon as they come into a room, anything that is out of place, just get so angry with it. So I am a writer. So I am quite language conscious. So as soon as if there is a big advertisement, I don't look at the image. I look at the text first. And after looking at the caption, then I look at the image. And anywhere I go, even when I go to a temple, I look at all the notices and see if there is a spelling mistake there. So now somebody else who doesn't have that filter, if I tell them, there's a spelling mistake in this notice, then everybody understands. Why don't you understand? So they don't take it seriously. Now usually, whenever I say that I catch spelling mistakes very quickly, usually in that PowerPoint there is some spelling mistake. So I hope there's no spelling mistake here anyway. So anyway, the point is that it is on our inner screen that our filters are stored, our biases, our prejudices, and they shape our opinion they shape our perception in particular ways. So if I have a bias against someone, I think, say, people of this class are very rude. Then if somebody from that group of people even behaves politely with me, still I think they're just putting up a show right now. But their real nature will come out soon. So even when something contrary to my opinion comes up, this inner screen tries to process it in such a way as to justify the opinion over there, justify the bias over there. But we are not our inner screen. We are different from it. This inner screen distorts our perception. But if we understand, I am different from that inner screen, then we can evaluate what is the distortion that is happening. and we can change it. So the whole possibility for self-help or self-improvement, self-transformation exists because we have the capacity to distance ourselves from our inner screen. And to the extent we do this, to that extent we can change ourselves. So when we are too attached to something, that means as soon as a stimulus appears on that inner screen, immediately a response comes, a reaction comes over there. So as soon as, say, if I consider a particular person to be lazy, that's the label I have fixed to them. And as soon as I see them, lazy person. So immediately that opinion comes up. So if I think some people, they're very materialistic, very calculative, very money-minded. So as soon as I see anything associated with them, what is their monetary motive in this? What do they want from this? So when the stimulus comes, immediately a particular reaction comes in. But we have the capacity to increase the distance between the stimulus and the reaction. So when I understand that, okay, this is how I'm labeling people. But maybe this label is not right. And I need to revise my opinion. So when I understand this, then I start distancing myself. Okay, I'm seeing the stimulus, but maybe this reaction that I'm having is not right. So to the extent we can do this, to that extent we can change from being biased, from being prejudiced, to becoming open-minded. So we all tend to form opinions very quickly. One of the major causes of conflicts is judging without understanding. We see a particular action, and based on our preconceptions, we assume a particular motivation for that action. Say, for example, if I see somebody else overeating, and I say, such a glutton. Now, if I myself overeat, I was hungry. The action is the same. If somebody else is oversleeping, such a lazy person. If I oversleep, I was tired. So what happens here? This is we ascribe false motives to people, or we ascribe motives based on our conceptions. So now, I see a person eating a lot, I see a person sleeping a lot, but why are they doing it? I don't know that. So when we have certain conceptions about people, then the actions that they do, we filter them and we assume certain motivations for those. That is how we become close-minded. And to the extent we become close-minded, to that extent we can't perceive reality. We can't act in a healthy way. So I had one such experience, many such experiences, but I'll share one experience. We often have spiritual festivals, after which we have feasts. So I was once at such a program, I gave a talk, and then after that many people were asking questions. So I spent a lot of time answering the questions. And then when I went down to the place where the food was being served, usually in the feast we have some dessert. So that by the time I reached there, the dessert was over. So I felt a little annoyed, I don't have dessert. Then there was another friend of mine, not acquaintance of mine, he's a very senior spiritual practitioner. He was sitting and he was taking food. And I could see that in his plate, he had the dessert and it was over. And normally desserts are in limited quantity. You have other items maybe in second or third serving, but dessert is only one serving. So then as I saw, he started asking, hey, is there any dessert? So then, now because he is a very senior person, so some other of those who were serving, they started checking it. One of them said, no, there's no dessert, it's over. Then still he asked the second person, is there any dessert? That person also said, no. He asked the third person. I said, how shameless is this? You already had one helping, and people have already told you there's no dessert. And finally, he was asking third person, fourth person. So normally when those who serve, in events, those who serve food, because sometimes the number of guests may be unpredictable. So those who are serving food, they make their plates in advance, so that they have some food for themselves. So one of the servers brought his own plate. He started offering dessert from his plate to his plate. I was thinking, this is so shameless. I know, I already had one helping and he wants to take the helping from somebody else's plate also now. And then as he was about to serve the dessert in his plate, he said, no, not me, I already had it. And he pointed to me. And he said, he didn't get the dessert, give it to him. So he was asking that for me, not for himself. Now if that person had not brought the dessert, what would I have thought? Such an attached person, such a shameless person. No consideration about others. Now the dessert is a small thing, but this principle can apply to many, many things in life. That we see certain actions and based on those actions we form certain opinions. So to the extent we have this bias within us, to that extent we can't perceive reality as it is. Rather we impose our filter on reality and process it in that way. And because of that, we sometimes alienate others, we sometimes make ourselves lonely because we judge and condemn others. So we all need to become open-minded. But becoming open-minded means that first of all we have to understand that there is something beyond the mind. And I am that reality who is beyond the mind. And I can perceive what exactly is happening. So I can evaluate, is this the way I am perceiving, is this right or is this wrong? Is my perception, so there is a stimulus and there is a response. So you could say our mind is like if you have a 3-level model of the self. There's the body, the mind and the soul, which is like the hardware, the software and the user. So the software is the mind. And in this software, whatever we have done in the past, it keeps coming back. So say, if now in India, the movie industry is called Bollywood. Like we have Hollywood over here. So in America. So now suppose somebody has visited a particular website, Bollywood.com. So they visited many, many times, again and again. And now they come for a spiritual talk. And they hear there is a book, a spiritual book called the Bhagavad Gita. So they want to know what is Bhagavad Gita. They go to their browser and type B. And as soon as they type B, what happens? Bollywood. Immediately comes up. So now, they wanted to type Bhagavad Gita. But as soon as they type B, the browser gives autocomplete Bollywood. But if they don't want, then to BHAG, Bhagavad Gita, we'll type it. And then we'll get there. This I had an example of how this autocomplete can go wrong. The soul, the Atma, the Bhagavad Gita describes it, Sat, Chit, Anand. Sat means it is eternal, Chit means it is conscious, Ananda means it is joyful. So soul, which is beyond the body and the mind, is eternal. So eternal is described in Sanskrit as Sat. So I had once written an article, I write articles regularly for various magazines and books, and I use a text-to-speech software to read out the article. So then when so I had written said the soul is Sat, Chit, Anand. So the text-to-speech software read it out. The soul is Saturday Chit Anand. So now it was Sat, but it made it Saturday. So like that, here the autocomplete actually made it incorrect. So basically our mind is like a software. And whatever past experiences, whatever past opinions, whatever past actions we have done, they're stored over there. And they keep popping up automatically. So if I have an opinion, this person is short-tempered, then as soon as I see that person, even looking a little frowning, just see such a short-tempered person. Now, I don't know why they're frowning. I don't know. They might be going through some great grief in their life. It may not be that they're short-tempered, but I don't know. So basically, if I want to go to bhagavadgita.com, then although Bollywood comes, I have to conscientiously not let that get completed, but I have to type what I want. Similarly, based on our biases, our mind will give us certain prompts. This person is like this is like this. And when life is like this, we all have certain opinions. Life is like this, people are like this, God is like this, religion is like this. So in this way, we have particular opinions. So recently I was talking with an atheist in Stanford. I had a talk. After that, he says, I'm an atheist. I said, fine. What is the concept? What is the conception of the God you don't believe? He said that, I don't believe in a God who sends people down to hell forever. He says, I also don't believe in such a God. So for such a God, I'm also an atheist. So the point is that the word God is one word, but people have different conceptions about that. And based on their conceptions, they have certain reactions. Oh God, I don't believe in God. But what is that conception to which we are reacting? So now to the extent we understand that in this, the world is here, the mind is here, I am here. And the mind has its auto-prompts, auto-completes. And these auto-completes often complete in an incomplete way, in an incorrect way. I get one perception, and what that perception means, why that person is doing like that, I assume it all. I get B, it completes in Bollywood. Similarly, I see somebody doing something, this person is like this. I complete that. So we need to change this. And this can also have many negative consequences, not just at an interpersonal level, but also at a personal level. At a personal level, we all have certain attitudes. Just a few weeks ago, I was speaking at a mental health care center in central New Jersey, and I was talking with the care providers over there, and they were telling me something which I had read before, but they confirmed it. He said that two of the major mental health problems in today's world are anxiety and depression. So now if we consider this model of the inner screen, how to make sense of anxiety and depression? So basically, say one thing goes wrong. Something goes wrong in our life, and when that thing goes wrong, if our mind immediately goes to the past, see, this also went wrong in your life, that also went wrong, that also went wrong, that also went wrong. So when the mind takes the one thing going wrong as a stimulus and as a reaction, it brings back the memories of all that has gone wrong in the past. Then we get into depression. So sometimes in our home TV or movie, we may have some default setup. We press a particular button, the particular movie starts off immediately. So like that, for people who tend to get depressed, one thing goes wrong, it starts off the tragedy movie of all the things that have gone wrong in their life. This went wrong, that went wrong, this went wrong. Oh, things are always going to go wrong. Your future is also going to be like that. What to do? Just you get depressed by that. So depression is a result of the mind defaulting into the past and repeating or replaying all the bad things that have happened in the past. Or sometimes one thing going wrong may send the mind into the future. And we say, see, this went wrong, that can also go 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 wrong. And in that way, when the mind goes into the future and starts imagining all the things that can go wrong in the future, that causes anxiety. So both anxiety and depression are results of the the unwanted impressions stored in the mind, which cause one stimulus of one thing going wrong to either replay all the bad things that have happened in the past or the bad things that happen in the future. So if we want to, now depression can be a clinical condition which sometimes requires medical treatment. But depression in a generic sense just refers to a negative, gloomy, sad, dejected state of mind. So when we can learn to disassociate this stimulus, this reaction is not necessary. This one thing has gone wrong, that's one thing. I don't have to associate with all the other things that have gone wrong. So if we can just observe, this is the stimulus that has come up, let me distance myself from it. this stimulus doesn't have to trigger this reaction. So to the extent we understand how this inner screen works, to the extent we understand that intelligence, that I am different from my inner screen, to that extent I can observe what happens on the inner screen without identifying with it, without getting carried away by it. So sometimes you say on a computer many windows are open, and sometimes suddenly a window pops up. Do you want to install the software? Now some pop-ups are so insistent that normally it is yes, no or later. And say the default option is no. But if you click yes, it will install. But in some softwares, the default option is yes. And you have to actually shift the default to no. And some softwares may be such that actually it is, if you don't click no within 10 seconds, it will start off. And sometimes some pop-ups such a come up, some advertisement just pops up. You look around for the cross, you can't spot the cross anywhere. It's where is it? So similarly for us, we may be doing one thing and suddenly something pops up within us. It pops up, okay. We are studying for our exam and suddenly, hey, I didn't see what is the latest news. Maybe what is the sports score? What are my friends doing on Facebook? One thought pops up. And if we are not vigilant, we just identify with it. And as soon as we identify with it, we go off, click there. And sometimes we may just spend hours and hours browsing. Now, at least if you're watching a YouTube video, normally we are watching one video and there's a list of 10 suggested videos that comes up. Now imagine if there was some technology, some software which was so sensitive that it could sense where our eyes are. So if you're watching one video and there are some other video links nearby, and if you just glance at the link, immediately that link opens up. And we're reading that, another link, just glance at it, it opens up. Now if there was software like that, just glancing at a link would cause that link to open up, we would just get trapped. Actually our mind is that kind of software. We're doing one work, some thought pops up. Now as soon as we give attention to that thought, it starts growing. It starts growing. And the more attention we give, the bigger it grows. Till it can completely consume us. So by understanding that I am different from the inner screen, we can get the perspective to observe that inner screen. We identify the stimulus rather than identifying with the stimulus. Identifying the stimulus means, okay, now this is the anger stimulus that is coming. This person speaks like this, when they speak like this, I get angry. Rather than becoming angry, this is the anger stimulus that has come. This is the anger program that is about to start now. No, I don't need to get angry. So if we identify what are the impressions, what are the filters, what are the preferences stored on our inner screen, on our mind, then we can rectify them. Now, how do we rectify them? Basically, say stimulus A causes a reaction B. So now the reaction B may be unhealthy. If somebody speaks something badly to me, I just get depressed. So now, how do I avoid that? That the stimulus A, frequently I can't stop. Bad things will happen to us. But if I can recognize, A doesn't have to lead to B. It is leading to B right now, but I can change that. Let me have C, something else which I do. How do I do that? That requires, we could say, a purification of the mind. You see, if I have a virus in my computer, and a virus causes my computer to hang, then I get an antivirus program. And that antivirus program cleanses the virus, removes the virus. Similarly, spirituality, spiritual wisdom acts like a cleanser of the mind. Whatever filters are there, they get removed. So spiritual knowledge helps us understand that we are different from the screen and what is appearing on the screen. And spiritual processes like meditation, yoga, prayer, these help us realize our spirituality. These take us to spiritual consciousness. And then When I understand, okay, I'm spiritual, that contact with the spiritual reality changes our inner programming. Just like, say, if I had type Bollywood repeatedly, and then now one way to change that to Bhagavad Gita again and again and again, keep visiting Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita will become a preference. But instead, if I just go into the default settings and I find out where are the preferences, where are the bookmarks stored, and I cross Bollywood and I say Bhagavad Gita, then Bhagavad Gita will automatically come after that. So similarly for us, when purification takes place, then the same stimulus, instead of causing the unwanted response, will cause a healthier response. So this purification comes as at the spiritual level of reality. As souls, we are ourselves spiritual beings. And the soul is a part of the whole. There's an infinite consciousness and we are finite consciousness. And to the extent the soul connects with the whole, to that extent the soul becomes anchored in reality. And to that extent is less and less affected by the biases on the inner screen. We can evaluate them and we can rectify them. So I'll conclude with one story of how I found the experience of someone I was connected with, how their inner programming changed completely. And I started coming to the West a few years ago. The first time I had come to America, I had gone to university and I spoke there on regulating our mental diet. It was a vegetarian society. I spoke how we're selective, how careful about what you eat. Similarly, we should be careful about what we take in, because those impressions stay in the mind and they will make us behave in particular ways. So after that, when an American boy came and he wanted to talk with me privately, he said that just before this talk, I was contemplating suicide. So he said, I had been in a relationship with a girl and she had suddenly broken up with me. I was very depressed. So as I was walking along in the campus, gloomily, I saw a poster of this program. Something within me said, just go for this talk. So he said, now after hearing your talk, I have understood that it is not that I wanted to commit suicide. It is a mind which is prompting me. Commit suicide, commit suicide, commit suicide. It's like a prompt that is coming up. I told him, it's a priceless insight that you have got. This has saved your life and this can also make your life in future. So I encouraged him I told him I was speaking based on the Bhagavad Gita. I told him to read the Bhagavad Gita. And I also write on the Bhagavad Gita every day a small 300-word blog at gitadaily.com. So I encourage him to read that. And then every time, once or twice a year, whenever I come to America, when I go to that college, I would meet him. And then he started practicing spirituality, started practicing bhakti yoga. We did some musical meditation just before this talk. So he liked music. So he started doing that musical meditation also. And then last year, when I had again gone to that college, he told me that he experienced something similar. He had again been in a relationship with a girl and she had just broken up with him. I sent a message that I don't want to continue this relationship, I am blocking you, don't try to contact me. So he said when he got that message, he just went straight to his room. He locked his door, pulled down his windows, closed the curtains, turned off the lights. And then he picked up his violin. And with his violin, he started singing the same mantra that we were chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He started pouring his heart out into that singing of the mantra. He said that I was singing continuously for 6 hours in complete darkness around me. And he said, at that time, I experienced a divine presence as if embracing me and comforting me. I felt as if my heart was bathed in some ineffable light. It was the most enriching experience of my life. So what would normally have been a depressing experience, what could normally have triggered off a suicidal response, here it triggered a spiritual response. And by experiencing spirituality, that same distressful situation became not depressing but enriching. So this is how we can change the programming of our mind, whether it is with respect to our conceptions of others or conceptions of ourselves. When we connect with a reality bigger than ourselves, and when we raise our consciousness to a reality beyond the physical and the mental, when we raise ourselves to spiritual reality, life's ups and downs won't trouble us so much. Life's stimuli won't trigger default responses within us. Rather, we will be able to choose wisely. And by choosing wisely, we will be able to act productively. So this is how we all can cleanse our inner filters. Our inner mirror can be cleansed, and thus we can go beyond close-mindedness to becoming open-minded without having to become empty-minded. Becoming empty-minded would mean that we just reject there's any kind of reality beyond the physical. And just whatever you want to believe, you believe. Whatever you think is right, it is right. But instead, understand there is a higher reality. There are different ways given in different traditions to connect with that higher reality. We find a path which helps us to connect with that higher reality. And when we experience that higher reality ourselves, we get higher strength. We get a greater strength to not only counter our misconceptions about others, but also our misconceptions about ourselves. And thus when our inner screen is cleansed of misconceptions, then we will be able to act much more productively and successfully in our life. We all have certain abilities, but our inner screen often lacks clarity. And when the inner screen lacks clarity, we cannot use our ability properly. But spirituality cleanses our inner screen and thereby brings clarity. And thus, our ability to tap our ability is enhanced by our spirituality. Our ability to understand what can I do, what are my strengths, what are my contributions that I can make. To understand that and to utilize that. That is all increased by our spirituality. So I'll summarize what I spoke today. I spoke on be not close-minded, be open-minded, not empty-minded. So I started by talking about how when none of us want to be close-minded. That means some people just attach their opinions no matter what the facts are. So there we don't take in any opinion contrary to our facts. But the mind to function has to open like a mouth to take in food, but it also has to close so that it can chew and digest the food. So similarly, if we think open-minded means not having any opinion at all, then we become empty-minded. We become like a pipe and nothing stays. So I give examples of close-mindedness and open-mindedness and empty-mindedness. Somebody is saying that when we are close-minded, we reduce people to one feature of theirs. Oh, you belong to this sub-designation of this religious group, therefore you are a heathen, you are a infidel. Or we just become completely relative. And this is right, that's our tradition, that's also our tradition. We don't take any stands at all. But we discussed about how absolutism and how there is the opposite of ultimatism is not relativism. It is open-mindedness. And ultimatism and dogmatism are different. Dogmatism means I am irrationally attached to my opinions, no matter what the facts. Ultimatism means I accept that there is some ultimate reality. Although whether I know that reality, that is open to question. So relativism relativizes everything, including relativism also. So to say that there is no absolute truth, that statement is itself a claim to absolute truth. And if there were no absolute, if morality were entirely relative, then child abusers, suicide bombers, all kind of molesters, they think they are doing the right thing. So specifics of what is right and wrong may vary, but the principle that there is right and wrong, that is universal. Traffic rules may vary in different countries, but the principle that traffic needs to be regulated, that is universal. So when we move was acknowledging, okay, there is some reality which is beyond our relative opinions. So, how do we understand that and how do we respond to that? So, where do our relative opinions reside? Talked about the inner filter, and for that we did a thought experiment. There's an inner screen and there's an inner seer who is beyond that inner screen. So, the inner screen is our mind and the inner seer is the soul. So, our opinions are stored in our inner screen and they direct or distort our perception. So, if I'm very much interested in language, my perception gets directed towards words everywhere. If I'm interested in food, it gets directed towards food. If I think people of a particular group are lazy, then my thoughts get directed towards that. So these conceptions of others that we have, we see their actions and we label those actions. We ascribe certain motivations to them, which may be completely wrong. So to avoid this, we have to recognize that, okay, this inner screen has some programs which may or may not be right. So this stimulus does not have to lead to that response. And then from there I shifted to talking about how we may have misconceptions not only about others, but also about ourselves. So when one thing goes wrong, and immediately our mind starts a program of all the bad things that have happened to us in the past, then that causes depression. Or it starts off a program of all the things that will go wrong in the future, and that causes anxiety. So when we understand this programming, instead of identifying with it, we identify it. That requires intelligence. And then to better identify it, we have to identify that I am beyond the screen. I am the inner seer. And this understanding comes by spiritual knowledge and spiritual practice. Spiritual practice especially helps us to access a spiritual level of reality beyond the mental. And when we situate ourselves in the security of our spirituality, whatever goes up and down in our mind, we can observe it and not get carried away by it, but respond intelligently to it. So our habits or attachments means that certain stimuli trigger certain default responses. Like B leads to Bollywood. But we can change that to Bhagavad Gita by going to the preferences. So changing our preferences means purification. So when we practice a spiritual path, such as the path of Bhakti Yoga, which involves chanting mantras in musical meditation, by that our default settings change. And I concluded by talking about the story of this boy. First there was a breakup. The default response was suicidal. But then as he practiced spirituality, his default response became spiritual. That experience, which could have been depressing, turned out to be enriching. So the more we practice a spiritual process for raising our consciousness, the spiritual level, the more we can distance ourselves from our mind and correct any misconceptions that are there. And in that way, our ability to tap our ability is enhanced by our spirituality. Thank you very much. Okay.
First of all, thank you so much for your wonderful dissertation. Back to the mind. If something is susceptible to pollution, it needs to be purified. It means if it can be contaminated, it means it's material. It is not spiritual.
Okay.
So now the mind, what if it's material? What is made of? What is located? And when it gets purified, like the self-realized or spiritually emancipated person, does he have a new mind that is spiritual? Or what? Okay. Because initially we understand it's material. Because it needs to
So if something can be contaminated, it can be purified, it can be contaminated, then that means it must be material.
Yeah.
So what exactly is the nature of the mind and what happens to it when it becomes spiritualized, when it becomes purified? Consider the software. The software is not the user. But the software is also a thing. but it is not as objective as a hardware. I can say the hardware, okay, the CPU is here in my computer, the memory is here, the RAM is here, this is here. But if I want to say, where exactly is the hardware in the software in the computer? Now, I may have some disk structure and I can say it is in the D drive. But if I try to correlate the D drive with the memory, we may not be able to get an exact physical correlation. So, the software is also real, but it is not tangible the way physical things are. Similarly, the mind exists at a subtle level of reality, different from the physical. It is also material, but it is subtle. That's why it cannot be physically localized. Normally, it is depicted as being a covering on the soul. The soul is here, around it one covering is the subtle body, which includes the mind, and beyond that is another covering, that is the body, the gross body that we see. So it's not physically quantifiable or locatable because it is not a physical entity. But that doesn't mean it is not real. It is real, but it is subtle. Now, when we become purified, at that time, the mind is always, it's never conscious, it is never spiritual. It is a part of this body. So the body is material, the mind is also material. But it starts functioning spiritually. That means it starts giving us spiritual promptings. It starts giving us healthier, positive promptings. Beyond whatever negative promptings we might be having earlier. So the mind remains physical, but the mind remains material, but it does not give us materialistic promptings. It gives us spiritual promptings. That is the point of a healed mind. Now when somebody is spiritually completely realized, and at that time the soul itself has a spiritual mind associated with it, which is completely different. That is realized when we get transported to the spiritual level of reality. But while functioning in this world, it is the mind that becomes spiritualized in its functioning. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah. Just to kind of follow up on his question, right? So you talked about your...
Just 1 minute.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Because this is a little technical question. We can talk about it a little later personally also. Yeah, please.
Well, I do have a question. It's not completely related to this. But, I'd like to know maybe, if you have, a morning or a night routine that kind of helps, with your mind and, to have a good start and end of the day kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. So if you want to have a good start for the day or a good end, can we have a morning or a night routine? Yes, actually the morning is the time when our consciousness is very receptive. So if at the morning time we can take in some spiritual vibrations, then those can give us the security of spirituality throughout the day. They can spiritually orient our consciousness. So that's why those who are serious spiritual practitioners or those who are spiritual seekers, they often have some regimen of spiritual practice. So for example, we are part of the Bhakti Yoga tradition. It's a yoga tradition which focuses not just on bodily postures, but on redirection of the emotions of the heart. So Bhakti is a pure emotion. So Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of pure emotion, the yoga of pure love. So in this tradition, we chant mantras. So we chanted this mantra, I sang this mantra, Hare Krishna, this mantra. So it can be sung musically or it can be also chanted softly as a meditation, individually. So when we wake up in the morning, we freshen up, and then if we take some time, just chant this mantra in a calm, reflective frame of mind, we'll find that those vibrations will register deeply within us. So starting our mornings with some spiritual sound vibrations, that is very powerful. This mantra, basically, what does it mean? It means that the Krishna, Ram, Hari, all these are names of the ultimate reality, the whole. And we all are parts of the whole. So it's a meditation which means, oh part, return to harmony with the whole. So we are reflecting, contemplating. I'm a part of the whole. Let me return to harmony with the whole. So when we have this reflection, it can start our day in a very positive way. And at the end of our day, our mind is just caught, this happened, that happened, that happened. But if we can just look back at the day and look at the positives, try to find out what are the good things that happened in our life, what are the good things that we did, then we try to be thankful to that. Our mind tends to count our problems. This went wrong, this went wrong, this went wrong. Yes, things do go wrong in life, but things do also go right. So when we consciously, instead of counting our problems, count our blessings and thank our souls for that, thank the infinite for that, that creates a very positive frame of mind where we can put an end to that day in a peaceful and joyful way. So meditation on mantras in the morning and meditation on thankfulness in the night can help us create a spiritual sandwich in which we can place our day, and thus we can bring more positivity into our days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Oh, I have a question about spiritual and then religion. In which level when you practice spiritual, you know you are going a little more to a religion level? Because I do see some people practice yoga, and then when they do it in a very mindful, I don't know, beyond what I can understand, it become kind of spiritual. So in that way, I find it's kind of close-minded. So how do you see that level of spiritual and then religion?
Okay. So let me repeat the question so that I understand it right. So you're saying that, how are religion and spirituality related? Some people practice some things, say they will practice yoga or something like that, but they become very attached to that, they become very opinionated about that.
Yeah.
So how do we differentiate between spirituality and religion? Is that your question?
Yeah, if I practice yoga, how do I know I'm not going to a religion level?
Okay.
Yeah.
By practicing yoga, how do I know that I'm becoming spiritual and not going towards religion? Okay, thank you, good question. So actually I had some part of the PT which I didn't use. Can you just move ahead? Fast. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. See, it's just as in science, there is theory and there is experiment. Similarly, in spirituality, there is philosophy and there is religion. So, in the science, the theory tells us, gives us postulates about the nature of reality. See, Newton observed a fruit falling and he postulated, maybe there is a law of gravity. And then the experiment is what enables us to check whether the theory is right or wrong. Okay, if an apple falls, other objects will also fall. And not just here, in different parts of the world. So similarly, in spirituality, there is philosophy. Philosophy tells us postulates about the nature of reality. Say, for example, there is an inner screen, and beyond that, there is an inner seer. All this is philosophy. And now, philosophy is just an assertion. How do I know whether it is true or not? The practices that I follow for either experiencing or disproving what the philosophy is saying, those practices are called as religion. Now, in today's world, the word religion has got a very negative connotation. Many people say, I want to be spiritual but not religious. So the idea is, they equate spiritual with open-minded and religion with narrow-minded. So yes, we should be open-minded, not narrow-minded. That's fine. But spiritual is also a level of awareness. And we have to follow some process to rise to that level of awareness. So, they consider there's a top of mountain. There's a huge mountain. The top of the mountain is spiritual consciousness. The bottom of the mountain is material consciousness. But there can be different paths up the mountain. So, whichever path we take, the purpose is we should get to the top of the mountain. So similarly, we may be at different levels of different places in the world, different cultures, different mindsets. We may be in material consciousness. And there can be different traditions which offer us different paths up this mountain. So whichever path we take to rise up that mountain, that is our religion. So in a sense, religion is the path to becoming spiritual. What the practices that we do by which we can become spiritual, they are called religion. But sometimes, some people, they may stay at the bottom of the mountain itself and they don't climb up the mountain, but they keep going round and round the mountain telling everyone else, your path is wrong, come to my path, come to my path. So they pull others down from their path, but they themselves don't go up their own path. So this is when religion starts leading to conflicts. When people, can you go ahead? Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. Yeah, when there is religion without philosophy, then I just believe what I am doing is right. Now, why it is right, how it is, no, it is right. So when that happens, religion becomes either sentimentalism or fanaticism. Sentimentalism means, oh, you are right, I am right, everyone is right. It has become empty-minded. And fanaticism means, my way is the only way. If you are not going to follow my way, you are going to go to hell. And some extremists in some religion may say, you are not only going to go to hell, we will help you get there faster. So, when that happens, that is, people are not using religion to go up the mountain. They are using religion to justify their own belief system. That was the last point in the slide was, use your religion. Go ahead. No, go ahead. No, okay, go ahead. It's way ahead. Forget it. Just go ahead. Last slide. So, just go ahead fast. Are you going ahead? You're going behind, I think. Just go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Use religion more to improve than to prove. If I use my religion to improve, okay, I'm at this level of consciousness, let me rise to this level of consciousness. That means I use the religion as a path to rise to the top of the mountain. But if I want to prove, that means, I just stay where I am and try to pull others down from their path. So that is when religion causes conflict. So it's not bad to be religious. It's bad to be narrow-minded. And sometimes religion can cause narrow-mindedness, but religion itself doesn't have to be equated with narrow-mindedness. So anybody, whatever path they are following to rise to higher consciousness, that we can say in a sense is their religion. So if we acknowledge that there is a path up I'm going up the mountain, and there will be different paths up that mountain, then I can be committed to my path. At the same time, I can respect other people may have their path by which they can go up the mountain. So that's how we can be religious and spiritual. Some people are religious but not spiritual. That means they just stick to their path and they don't see that there can be other paths. They become narrow-minded. So that is unhealthy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other question? So thank all of you very much for your attentive hearing and thoughtful questions. Thank you for coming here. Hare Krishna.